Sorry, just trying to pull something up super quick. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Just a reminder, we are live streaming on YouTube. Thank you for everybody who is joining today as a viewer. We'll have public comment in a minute where you can leave a comment. But yeah, and if you are here to present on a meeting item, we are having trouble adding people as presenters. So you sadly will not be able to join the meeting, but you can leave a comment on the, in the public forum area. So, okay, I would like to call the January 25th meeting of the Executive Board to order at 5:45 p.m. Okay, so first we are going to move on to the meeting minutes for last meeting, January 18th. It seemed like Vice President Godwin had several changes that they would like made.
For the minutes, go down to what page it's on. For the sustainability one, on page 3 of the document packet, for Vice President Pratt's report in the last line, it says Pratt has been working with Senator Lauren Johnson to draft a proposed sustainability section for the lobbying agenda. I would simply like to change lobbying agenda to Western Intersectional Lobby Day agenda, or legislative agenda, and then going down to page on page 7 of the document packets, for the legislative agenda and financial aid, it says bills SB 59999, and it should just be SB 5999. Or yeah, 5999, four digits. So yeah, just a small little typo.
Is there anything else?
Yep.
Okay. Yes, Dave.
Yeah, in the OSU recognition resolution draft, in the first 2 bullet points, I guess actually mostly just the first bullet point, where it says certify their union, certify their bargaining unit would be more appropriate language. And then the next bullet point has some like grammatical like parallelism issues, but I don't really care if no one else cares.
Okay, so in what bullet point would we be changing the bargaining unit to?
So yeah, so in the first bullet point, it says operational student employees have petitioned the state labor board to certify their union. It should say certify their bargaining unit.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. Next we can move, are there any other comments on the meeting minutes? Okay, next we can move on to the at-large appointments. Sorry that Mallory is not here today to present on behalf of the OCE, but instead I'm going to read her comments. So currently we have 3 at-large applicants for the Student Grievance Board. We are going to have it almost completely filled with undergraduate students. We needed 6 students. This is going to leave us with a total of 5, which is super great. All 3 of these students have leadership experience, lots of community service experience, and then also Christopher, the first candidate listed, they are also currently serving as the ethics board coordinator, and so they also work in the AS, but this is going to be them volunteering their time, and they all have the ability to be on the committee. The only thing that is to note is 2 of them are part of the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. The other person's part of the College of the Environment. One of the other people that we nominated or appointed last week was also part of the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, and then someone else was part of the Science and Tech. So we're gonna have a total of 3 people of College of the Humanities and Social Sciences, but we're not too worried since that is the largest college on campus and a majority of students fall under that college. But they do come from varying different academic majors and concentrations and backgrounds. And then I think the other thing too, which is super exciting, is next. We have Eric, who is a candidate for the Sustainability, Equity, and Justice Fund. They're replacing a previous candidate. They are majoring in environmental studies and the College of the Environment. They have current/past committee experience, and they also have lots of community experience. And they have been in contact with Liam, and they seem very excited and want to start right away, which is super exciting. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Jackie?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to clarify that the college distribution of the people appointed are three, College of Humanities and Social Sciences, one College of Science and Engineering, and what other college?
I think,
Environment.
it's gonna be fine and performing arts and then a business of the economics, because somebody is. So fine and performing arts, CBE, humanities and social sciences makes up 3, and then someone else's science and tech. Science and engineering, but one person is double major one.
Oh,
So they make
okay,
up 2.
okay.
So they're in CBE and performing arts. Super fun mix. Are there any other questions? Okay, next we can move on to the Finance Council charge and charter. Let me pull this up 1 second. Please be aware, this is my first time operating this screen, so it's a little kind of hard to maneuver, and I'm not as good at it as Rachel has been previously. So, yeah, I think sadly Trent isn't able to join us today, because he was also trying to join on Zoom, also experiencing some problems, but that's okay. We can just present, without it. I think a couple of the main changes is the adding of the fund financial manager. So essentially everything was supposed to be, all of the budgetary things are approved by the executive board, the student senate, and now it goes to the financial fund manager, who is essentially they're in charge of like everything budget related to the AS in total. So now this just explicitly says that they are involved in that process. And then it also removes it removes a couple of different things, really just adding in the fund financial manager. And then instead of saying every other week, they're meeting weekly now. Gabe and I currently sit on it. Since they get lots of things, and then we need for quorum at least 4 affirmative votes. Once again, including in quorum, the fund financial manager, their designee. So yeah, it's really interesting that they added the fund financial manager. And then I think the other thing that is important is it still goes through the student senate and the executive board, but now for the dissolution, it's also included the AS leadership group. We currently don't have the name of what that is going to be, but for reportage and like representation on the committee is or not representation, but like approval for different items are through the executive board and senate and the fund financial manager. And then for dissolution, it has to go through the AS leadership group. So I know that was kind of a lot and it's kind of like a long document, but hopefully we've all been able to look at it earlier. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, I just wanted to give you guys more context. This passed in its current form in the student senate as a consent item last night. And just one thing to just bring your guys' attention to is in section 6 quorum, where it says, during the summer or when the council is not in session, this council responsibilities fall to the business director, AS president, student senate president to approve time-sensitive funding in consultation with the business manager and AS fund financial manager. That new language, the understanding that the Senate had when they approved this, or I guess consented this, was that the restriction, even though it looks like it's been struck out for the restriction of $50,000, that's not like a material change, because if we go up to the like preamble or the charge, it still says that any like the grants over $50,000 require executive board, student senate, and fund financial manager approval. So that's like a stipulation that I'm gonna like clarify that to Trent and the finance council when I tell them that the senate approved this charter, just to make sure that that's clear. And then it also adds the time sensitive stipulation, which is good because that means that the like tripartite or like board person group can't just like unilaterally make funding decisions when the council is not meeting. Yeah. So, yeah, one last thing, the fund financial manager inclusion, I think Kira did touch on this, I don't know if it's super explicit, but, it's not us giving up power because we can't give up power we never had. There's like legal requirements for fund financial managers to like create a system of like robust internal controls, and they've already been doing the approval, it's just not been like explicit in our document, so it's good to have it there so people actually know what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, so final approval through them, and just kind of the reorganization of some stuff. Okay, can I get somebody to, would anybody like to move to approve the consent agenda with the stated changes to the meeting minutes?
Godwin moves to approve the consent items with the stated changes to the meeting minutes.
Yeah, seconds.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Okay, next we have public forum. I don't know if I can tell if any of these like left any comments. Has anybody?
We'll show Q&A. You have to click on it. Or click on the chat to see. Always from the tools.
Yeah, okay. Yes, there's something then. Okay. Next, we are going to move on to, okay, next we're gonna move on to the officer reports. First, it's my report. I really don't have too much to say. The main two things, are that I have my board of trustees report that is due on January 30th. So that's coming up super fast. If you have anything that you would like to add to the report, please let me know. Sunday, everything for the upcoming communications, AS newsletter is due, so if you have anything you would like to add to the newsletter on behalf of the executive board, please let me know. I'm going to be sending out an update on communications for the executive board, but essentially the AS newsletter is where the majority of our communication to the student body is going to be coming from, unless there's explicit approval of why we need an additional email. The other thing is I have found a time for Sophie, Morgan, and I to work on the Narcan project, making sure that we have Narcan on campus and creating a survey for students. The other thing is I found a time for the Outback Task Force to get together to talk about things, which is super exciting. And then I have been added into a group chat with all of the student lobbyists and the AS presidents to get an update about different bills. And so I'm going to be sending you some bills that we can share up to our constituents that might interest you or constituents to help hopefully get some Western student support. I'm probably going to be sending something out later today about Bill 5999, so that is just expanding college grant recipient access to more students. Super cool bill, but just be aware of that. You should probably be receiving something. It's going to be going out in our newsletters and different things, but I think the sign-in for that closes on Tuesday. So if you have the ability, I mean, you're interested, definitely sign on. It's listed on our agenda or our legislative agenda. So yeah, it would be great if we can support that. Okay, next we have a vice president report from Sophie.
Hey guys, not a lot last week, obviously because of the snow, but following that, a lot of stuff for emergency management committee. Just talking about whether like how successful the alerts were and things that could be changed. And so I reached out to people. I actually even went around my apartment building and asked people like if they had seen it or not, because they can, go on in campus and ask people. But I feel like they were pretty successful. And updates, I mean, I don't know if you guys saw, but the emergency management website is fully revamped. And so I gave some recommendations on that. And there will be, if any of you have the Live Safe phone app. Yeah, okay, one person. Yeah, it's not very widely used. And so we're switching to app Armor. It's still in like beta testing, and so it probably will not go into implementation for like maybe until spring quarter, I think May, like the soft deadline they said. I'm not really gonna be a part of that, but I'm gonna be getting information, so if anybody wants information on that. Also, there are 5 blue light phones that aren't working on campus right now, and I think that they are going to be decommissioned instead of replaced. So I thought that that might be of note to anyone here. If maybe we wanted to talk about that, or you could reach out to me and I could talk to them about that. I feel like people may have feelings about that. Yeah. That's pretty much it. Yes.
Well, I'm wondering about I know when Live Safe was introduced, there's been like, the entire time it's been on campus, there's been concern from like Black and brown students and like sort of undocumented, like, houseless folk about sort of like police aspect of that map. And I'm wondering if that's like something that's been in consideration with this, or I mean, I don't know how involved you are. But I know that's something that, when we were looking at hiring the chief of police last year, that was brought up a few times. And I don't know if that's like gone anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, it was not brought. I was not aware of those concerns, so thank you. I will definitely bring those concerns when we meet next, probably we're meeting in a month. And I think I was kind of left out of the testing phase, but I think that has to be more involved and bring those concerns. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, next we can move on to a vice president report from Aaron.
Okay, so the 2 main things that I've been working on are Western Intersectional Lobby Day related. I'll start with Lobby Day planning itself, because we'll be discussing the agenda later. We closed submission forms for the event on Tuesday, and we currently have 83 people signed up. Yay, we have capacity to take about 77 people, so we have a wait list of 6 people in case people fall through. We're working on an email to send out to the people who signed up, with more detailed information about like the itinerary, about the, clothing to wear, some more information on our preliminary agenda, the draft agenda. So we're gonna be reaching out to people who signed up. We're still working on setting up meetings with legislators, and that is gonna be done promptly. We finished on room assignments, and so I can tell you who we're rooming with. That is super fun for the people who signed up. And something that we are lagging behind a little bit on is food. I've been having a hard time trying to figure out what food sources to go to, because there's a lot of people with dietary needs and accommodations. So if anybody has suggestions on food lists to go to, I would really appreciate that. We only need like 2 dinner places. And I have a committee for Lobby Day planning set up, and that's myself, Casey Hayden, the advisor to the LAC, Dwani Rathor, who is our student government assistant, and Aspen Kate Stolio from the Office of Civic Engagement. And so the 4 of us are, dividing up the tasks and trying to stay on top of everything regarding that. For the agenda, we've been having this kind of like runaround thing. And I was confused about the process for that. So what we're going to be doing tonight is I'm going to be giving y'all a little overview of what we have, or you've already had the chance to read through it, but just want to discuss the content, how we feel about the bills, giving you some more information on them if that's what's needed, and figuring out formatting. And once I get that from you all, I'm going to go back to the LAC on Monday. I'm going to have a finalized discussion about it. We're going to make an official recommendation. And then after we do that, it will be out of the LEC's hands and fully in the executive boards. So, it will either, I'll bring it next week as an information item. If we feel good about it, we can move that to an action item. If not, hopefully at the very last moment, it'll be approved February 8th. That's the goal. And I think that's everything from me.
You're not gonna mention your event that you haven't told anybody about?
Yeah, the event got postponed because nobody has heard about it. I spoke to Wendy from Event Services right before this meeting, and had that canceled because I dropped the ball on publicity. And I didn't think it was fair to anyone to be investing money in an event that we weren't really confident we were gonna get a lot of turnout from. So we're gonna postpone that to early March, which gives me some time post lobby day to do more outreach. And yes, are there any further questions on that?
Okay, next we can move on to a vice president report from Sebastian. Is this your first one?
It is indeed.
Yes.
Well, I guess my second one, my first one was a very quick, mostly introduction.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, very exciting. Falling more into the role. It's a very exciting role. The first bit is the most fun part. Just doing some groundwork to support the new clubs, doing some very cool things on campus. Coming up this weekend is the EDM club. They're a new club on campus. They're having a big EDM concert here in the VU. They had a dry run at the Blue Room a couple weeks ago, and it was very well. They're hoping to make a profit act and be self-sustainable. So we gave them a small loan at the Communities Council, and it's a very exciting club. They have a lot of logistics laid out, and they're expecting to make some money from this actually. So if you guys want to go, or anyone wants to go, there's an EDM concert here in the VU on Saturday. So I just want to advertise that. There's also another new club called the Nerd Club on campus, which is also one that I was not expecting to be as developed as it already is. They have a lot of very fun tools and toys and obstacle course things to play with. Talking to Destiny in the Club Hub, apparently we had a large on-campus activity for a number of years called Humans versus Zombies. It's a kind of what it sounds like. It's an infection game with Nerf guns. If you get hit, you become a zombie. Students can sign up. It sounds like a lot of fun. So we're currently working, maybe talking with Jonah, the head of the Nerf Club, and seeing if that's something we can start on campus again. It was tradition for many years, apparently. Sounds like a lot of fun, so we're gonna try to get that going. College is having its 50th anniversary on the 2nd of February. It's coming up very soon. So they're doing a bunch of shows, a big celebration. Again, help support them. And then Dead Parent Society is also putting on a big festival at the end of the quarter for improv. They're flying some New York duo celebrities out here, and it's gonna be a big event going on for 3 days. So another thing to advertise. Yeah, speaking of all those things, the Activities Council, we met this week, and we made some adjustments to how we're sort of operating, and we're no longer funding food because we're finding that even without doing that, we are just blowing through our budget. It's not quite a big budget. We are finding out we are almost eliminated all of the travel budget for this quarter, like 85% of it. So it's the second week of the quarter, and that's where we are. So that's something to consider. But again, there's some very wonderful things we're funding. And one thing we're able to give out was a loan, so that does help. I want to give an update on DRAC this week. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make the first meeting this week, so next week, hopefully I'll be able to get a better report there. And tomorrow we'll be meeting with the Outback Farm for our first meeting on the task force there. And those will be the big things we're working on for this week. And that's all I have for at least this report. Again, still sort of filling in the role, a lot of fun stuff, but that's we have guests and friends.
Yeah, regarding the EDM concert, I would get in touch with Wendy Johnson, because when I was talking to her earlier, she just said she had some concerns about the ticket sale.
Great to know. Okay.
Yeah, just kind of put you in contact there with the EDM club now.
I very much think that, yes, I will do.
I just want to say, Sebastian, I'm so excited that you have been going to so many on-campus events. That is so exciting. Only 2 weeks into the quarter and you're already sharing about so many things that you've already gone to. So I'm so excited to have you as part of the team.
Thank you. It's the best part of the job. It's a big good fun on campus.
I'm gonna bounce off that. You're killing it already. I had a quick question. Is the Humans versus Zombies thing, is that the precursor to the Cancel the Apocalypse event that Productions usually holds?
So Cancel the Apocalypse, if I recall, no.
Oh.
Yeah, Cancel the Apocalypse was a separate thing that was planned with Kayla, Casey, and I, so old productions, AS Productions director, like 2 summers ago, myself, when I was working the OCE, and then Casey Hayden, the advisor to both of us, we planned that
Yeah.
together, and now they've done it as like a continual thing to us to grow now, so super exciting event though. Does anybody else have any other questions for Sebastian? Okay, there's an advisor report. I didn't realize that Autumn was gonna be here today. I don't know if Leona has anything to share.
Hi. Happy to be here with you all, and Adam didn't give me any notes to share, so.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being here in place of Adam today. So we're super excited to have you. Glad that this is your first executive board meeting.
Yeah, it is. It's actually really interesting to see how this all works. It's very exciting. So I'm actually really happy to be here.
Like, what would you like better, Senate or executive?
Okay, we gotta leave the room.
Okay, next we're gonna be moving on to our first information item today, which is going to be the Western Intersectional 2024 legislative agenda. We've seen this a couple of times now. There have been some big changes from last week to this week. So I will pass it off to Aaron to give us a rundown of what has been changed.
Yeah, so a lot of the feedback I got from last meeting was about formatting. So what we did was there are issue areas described, and we have a short paragraph underneath those, connecting them to Western students and why they're relevant to us and why they're an issue for us, why we care about it, why we're lobbying for them. So that was a big one. I put them under each of the categories. And in the last meeting, sustainability was included. Liam can probably speak to that more if you have questions and we can talk about it more. Additionally, housing affordability was a section that was included. There's this bill that would implement the similar kind of things that happened with the bill that was passed in Bellingham regarding giving advance notice to renters before rent increases. And we want that because it's stricter than the bill that we have in Bellingham. And on our legislative survey, and when people sign up for Lobby Day, housing insecurity and housing affordability was a huge issue for them. Or a lot of people mentioned that, so we wanted to include housing affordability as a section. Similarly, sustainability was brought up by quite a few people, and there were people in the LEC and Liam who felt very strongly that it should be included. So we have these cool bills that are on here, and I want to hear feedback from anyone who has it. 2 things from me that I want to ask is one, at the end here, I put a little like statement of conclusion, and it's obviously not finalized. I'm wondering if we should have a conclusion that's just kind of summing things up and saying thank you for your time. I also have a section about, you know, you've read it, and I would like to know people's thoughts on that. And then also, we were working on securing some data. Actually, we've gotten some data on some of the, claims that we're making. But I'm wondering how, involved or, like detailed we want this agenda to be, in terms of like having like the relevancy of like, why does this matter to students, but also providing numbers, like how fact, data, statistic heavy should this agenda be? Any feedback?
One thing that I have to say is I'm so excited to see the 2 sections added here. So exciting. I think that you can look to some other previous agendas. They have a lot of experience, and I know ones that I worked on previously, we've like quoted some data. So I don't think it should be too much, but it really just depends if this is for the legislator to see, if we're handing this to them, or if this is for the student to see. I know previously, we've had the legislative agenda that doesn't really go into a lot of detail for everything, but then we have a follow-up packet that really goes pretty deep into the bill so students can understand and really speak to these important things. Because I think it's important for the students to have that knowledge and the ability to speak to it to really be the best prepared. The other thing is I realized we only talked about the 4 bills that were added. We haven't discussed the 11 that were removed from the previous agenda to this agenda. I think a lot of really important ones were removed, especially ones that relate to intersectionality. I realized I've talked to a couple of individuals and those on the LAC too, and I don't know how we're defining intersectionality, but when I go through this agenda, it doesn't really read intersectional to me, especially with the removing of the miscellaneous or no bills attached sections. That's where we really thrived and really brought in a lot of the intersectionality. Like we have financial aid, student employment, sustainability, housing affordability, these really great things. But if we look at previous Western intersectional agendas, they have like centering equity, equity and justice, disability accommodations, resources for sexual assault survivors, gender discrimination, protecting trans students, and these really important section areas that we really just aren't addressing at all, especially with the removal of ensuring abortion pills on campus, the Equal Pay Act that was removed, removing gender terms from the Constitution, the mental health treatment that was removed from the wellness section. And then like the firearms, and then we also removed human trafficking and sexual exploitation from the agenda. So all of these I thought really matched with the intersectional ethos of the entire event. But looking at this agenda right now, I'm really worried about giving an agenda that looks like this to legislators and calling it an intersectional lobby day when it really isn't intersectional. And maybe we want to define intersectional different than like I'm thinking, but I don't necessarily know if my definition of intersectionality really shines through in this agenda, especially since we aren't representing many intersectional identities. Like I know that we have a couple with like financial aid and some mental health ones and like the experiencing homelessness program. Really don't know if it's enough.
Yeah, for sure. I have been in communication with Stella like quite frequently. Stella was a big advocate for really cutting down the length of the agenda, and from her experience in Olympia, which she'll be able to tell you all more about next week, there is a credibility factor when we go into these meetings, and from her perspective, we need to go in and say like, this affects us very directly, like in this way, and like this is why we should have a say in it. And we felt that there are certain issues that are really important that matter to us, but it's hard to make the direct connection of like this is a student issue. The human trafficking bill is huge. It would overhaul a lot of the language and like impose more or it would kind of expand like the definition of like what human trafficking is and like more of like remedies for that crime and the penalties and stuff. But I can't say like human trafficking like is a student issue. Do students care about it? Yes. Does it belong on this agenda? No, in my opinion. Everything in the miscellaneous section, such as removing gender terms from the Constitution. Once again, we can say, oh, this would be cool as students, but not necessarily noteworthy of being on our agenda. Kira, go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely totally understand that argument for some of the bills, but there's some that I know directly have impacted me as a student, and from the students that I've talked to, it really would impact them, such as the updating the protected classes in the Washington State Equal Pay and Opportunities Act. Accessing abortion pills on campus at a reduced cost would be very impactful for students. And then we also had funding for resources at the Counseling and Wellness Center and the Disability Access Center.
Mhm.
I know the last two I just said didn't have any bills attached to them, but in every other lobby day previously, we have had asks that didn't have didn't have bills attached to them, so that we could talk to the legislator about it this session and hopefully have it next session, because next session really matters. That's where all the money is gonna be. So it's really important that we talk to them about it, even if there isn't a bill attached. And I would say at least those three things are so important. And like firearms, I would say are super important. And like we have LGBTQ plus students that are represented in this. Like there's so many bills that would reflect students. Like you've picked two. Maybe those don't represent students, but there's a lot of other intersectional bills that we could add that would. I just wanted to finish my sentence, but forgot what I was saying. Next time, let's raise our hand, because I think we're gonna have to have a little bit of a longer conversation today. And we can maybe bounce around to who's talking, but let's maybe go to like raising our hand scene or like raising our hand situation, to like kind of go, if that makes sense. But yeah, you can go and then we'll have Dave speak.
Yeah, sorry about that. Because I just wanted to get to your concerns as far as, asking to support the Disability Access Center and that the Student Center. I wholeheartedly agree with that. That's a portion that's in the most recent version of it. It's on this version that I shared with you in the conclusion section, of saying to the legislators, like, we know that next year will be a capital budget year. We know that our university will be coming to you, with a budget request, and we just want our legislators to ensure that when our university comes, that there's gonna be enough funding provided for these services for our marginalized students. And that's something I want to include on here. It's not attached to a bill, it's more forward facing. And I want to get feedback on that, and especially, it's not phrased improperly right here. I want to get feedback from people if they think that should be involved, if that's appropriate for this session. For the abortion pills, I agree, it's a really big issue, that would affect our students, that matters to students. Hearing from Stella, it's just not something that's gonna be addressed in this session. It's just not, we can talk about it, but there's not gonna be really like any impact, and I just kind of don't necessarily want to take away time from these other issues that are important and are intersectional in ways that aren't perhaps surface level. And concerning the firearms bill specifically, it has an incredible amount of support. So it can be placed on our agenda because yes, it is an issue that students really care about, and we can talk about how there are a lot of, school shooters and attacks on college campuses, for sure, an argument that we can make. But I'm really confident that that bill is going to be moving forward without the support of Western students. And my main priority and my concern with our agenda is the amount of time and resources that we're able to dedicate to like really specific topics and being really focused in what we talk about. So yeah, I hope that clarifies some things.
Okay, we are at time. We still have 30 more minutes left on our agenda stuff, but it looks like we have 8 more minutes that we can give to this. So I would like to move to extend this agenda item by 10 minutes.
Seconds.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of extending the information item by 10 minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? It passes unanimously. Okay, we will be done talking about this at 6:32. Dave, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of bring up this idea, and I also have other thoughts, but this is just in response to this current conversation that about like socializing bills, and I know you kind of talked about it, Erin, with your idea about like still including the like general ask for more money for like higher ed. And I think that that is also applicable to other bills. And I think it's important that like these ideas keep like showing up in like the state legislature, so that like legislators don't forget about it. Like if like just because something's not happening this year doesn't mean it's like us talking about this year is not important. I think that there's like longer term sort of like things we could like look to, because like, I don't know, if you guys have been working in student government for the past 4 months, things move slowly, and they move maybe even slower in the state legislature, like yeah, and I think like that sort of framing an idea is like useful. I think it's really important to have like long-term, like just look long-term, because it is a supplemental year, and I think we like, because of that, we do have to look like more long-term than in like other years. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Thanks, Sebastian.
Yeah, maybe a bit of a offshoot, but I know we meant the idea of conclusion. I kind of like the idea of a conclusion in theory to some degree. I do like at least a nice end and a thank you to the people that are reading it. I'm curious because there's some worry about space, how much we put in there. Is there like a logistic issue of how much we can talk about? Is like a reading issue on their end? Like what is the worry for length? Like where does it come from?
Okay, so, we get 15-minute meetings with the legislators,
Okay.
which gives us time for like approximately like 3 to 4 issues. And we will be providing these agendas, so they'll have like the ability to read them on their own time. We've no guarantee that they actually will read them.
Mhm.
And I feel, in my experience in lobby day last year, there was a huge number of bills, there was about 26. And it was kind of overwhelming and, you could only, what was I trying to say there? There were so many options that people could choose from, and they did, that it made things like not like uncohesive or not cohesive. And there was just so many options that people could go in so many different directions, and we want this year to be more focused so that we're making sure that each of the legislators is hearing the same or similar things from all of our students, so that we're really having an impact in that way. We can be saying something similar to all of them, and they're hearing from Western singularly, not only like as an individual student, but like as someone representing the student body. I think Sakira and then Morgan and then Liam.
Yeah, you said I thought this, and then you said we. Are you speaking on behalf of LAC when you say we, and is LAC in tandem with this belief? Because I talked to, I think, 4 members of the LAC, and I don't necessarily know if they agree with this belief. So I'm just kind of confused. Are you talking on behalf of yourself or behalf of LAC?
So I was saying in my experience, lobby day last year, that was my perception of lobby day. What I've been bringing to the LAC is the idea of having much more of a pared down, agenda. And I've been pretty direct about that, and upfront. And I give, when I suggest to remove a bill, I give opportunities for people to argue in favor of those bills.
That hasn't happened for all of them. I just have to say, that has not happened for all of them in LAC.
That's true. That is true.
Sorry to interrupt, but sorry, my bad. That hasn't happened.
Yeah, that's raising confusion. Morgan, do you wanna talk?
I'll try and keep it super fast because I know Liam has stuff too. For the conclusion part, I don't think that the part where we're talking about money for the Ethnic Student Center and Disability Access Center should be like in a conclusion section. I think it'd be more effective to like move it towards like a health and wellness area. I also just want to give you props because I know intersectionality can go so far in so many different places. And it can be really hard to like talk about bills that already have support. And I know you want to make use of your time like really well, especially like talking about controversial bills. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to add things that already have like support and traction, just because it allows students to kind of like resonate and share their stories and stuff. So that's the only reason why I wouldn't be super opposed to adding bills that might have support already. That's just a read.
Super quick note, going all the way to the top about the content in the value statement, and I know we added these last 2 sections recently, but it says we ask the legislature to provide financial aid opportunities that are robust, equitable, contribute to student employment, and provide inclusive health services to post-secondary educational institutions within Washington State. It would be cool to have sustainability and housing affordability added to that value statement.
Yeah, I agree. I had written something, but it like didn't flow as nicely. But Stella is like my co-author in all of this. She wrote a good portion of this, and I'm gonna work with Stella, go back to her with all of your suggestions, and yeah, make changes to the document reflecting some of the things I've heard. In, you know, the spirit of what I have been doing with the LACs, people can bring up bills, people can discuss the bills, people defend the bills if they want. Are there any bills and issues that people feel very strongly at this moment that they want to see on this agenda? I'm hearing abortion bills, gun control. Is there anything else? I think Gabe and here.
Yeah, I was just gonna answer your question again.
This is not directly answering your question, we'll get to that later. I do think, something about last week is important for us to very clearly say whether we support or don't support each individual bill. And then I do think that, as like a broader structural thing, there should be 2 documents. One, the thing we're giving to legislators, not what we're approving, but then also like the background research, like there was last year. I think that's very helpful for students because it's hard to get people who are volunteers to like go do their own research. Like not everyone knows how to do legislative bill research. And then in terms of like issues that I think are important, there, I would say, something about trans students would probably be good to add back. I know that's something that actually like a reason why a few people are like coming back for lobby day and having coming back is because of like the issues like that were brought up. And if you go on like trans bill tracker, there's like 3 new bills in Washington State.
really quickly here, I'll get you in a second, as far as like issue areas wanting to support, there was also a lot of vocal expression, or a lot of people wanting to support, or like a ceasefire and Palestine on this agenda. And I want to get like the board's opinion on if that is a section that we should include on the agenda.
Well, we passed a resolution in favor of it. It would really depend on what the bill is exactly saying.
There's no bill, just a general statement.
Then I don't see why not. We've already released a statement in favor of that. But let's go in order next time because I was gonna address your previous comment, so let's go in order. But that's a great question. Let's just go in order next time. So things to add is after a conversation with an LAC member, if we go through Wild's agenda last year, a lot of the bills are repeat this year, so they were reintroduced this year. The entirety equity and justice section was reintroduced. Several of the resources for sexual assault survivors were reintroduced. The disability accommodations, I think, had a couple of repeat ones. And then the protecting trans students one, I think there was like one that we didn't want to support last year that we were not in support of, and there was a very similar but even worse bill. So almost the entire Wild agenda from last year, which truly just focused on intersectionality, a lot of them have been reintroduced this year. That was supported fully last year. So, and I do not feel comfortable approving this agenda in its current state called Western Intersectional Lobby Day without defining what intersectionality is and truly reflecting intersectionality within our agenda.
Yeah, really quickly with the time that we have left, I want to say that this is a biennium, so every single bill that didn't pass last year is automatically reintroduced in this section. So yes, all of the bills that didn't pass last year are automatically reintroduced. That doesn't mean they have any support. Part of what we're looking at is whether or not bills have been assigned to committees. That is whether or not the bills are going to move forward. That is whether or not they're relevant. So if I've taken some things off of the agenda because they were never assigned to committee or not moving forward, and therefore like I don't think they need to be on our agenda and spoken on. Yes.
Can you share with the board meeting by next meeting? I know there's like deadlines for like cutoffs for the different like
Yes.
progress. Can you share that with us so we kind of know? Because I don't know where to find that information, and it would be very useful
Yeah.
to figure out whether things are dead or not.
For sure.
Do you have a comment, Sebastian?
Oh, just a very quick one. Hate to backtrack. I just want to go back to the question of conclusion. If I understand correctly from your answer, there's no issue with the conclusion taking space that's going to compete. Like if we had a conclusion in there that was long, it's not going to compete with our release of lobby on this issue at all. It's not space, right? Is that what that's, if not, I fully support the conclusion, if we're in a conclusion meeting or speaking about the bills, I won't support it. But the conclusion not staying speaking on bills, but
Yeah, I think the purpose of the conclusion in the agenda would be again, to pick a physical copy that we're giving to the legislators, because in the in-person meeting, obviously they'll be saying thank you and goodbye, but having it on the agenda as a little section, we haven't like fully formatted it yet, so I'm not sure about spacing issues, but that is definitely something to keep in mind.
I look at it, just want to make sure that take away from other issues, like,
Yeah.
what they have, but like for dropping a book is that we did drop.
Yeah, I appreciate the consideration.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're past time, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for everyone for your comments today. I know that this was kind of an intense conversation compared to some that we usually have. So thank you everybody for being open and honest, and listening to each other. I mean, it really means a lot for me. I really hope that we can take away from this meeting that we don't have to have bills attached, that we're to be aware of space, and really just be aware of everybody's different things that they brought up. So can we move on because we are past time? If we go any further, it's gonna be like we have 26 minutes left and we have 30 minutes of agenda. Is it really, really important? Do you like?
Yeah, I just want to say that our representatives from the ethnic students, all of the representatives that we have from the different departments has felt that this is appropriately intersectional. I will return to them and we'll continue to have that conversation. If you have any direct things that you would like to see again in front of me, and I'll consider them.
Okay, next we are going to move on to the ASWWU Foundation's response to divestment resolution,
Yeah, so we can make this a bit quicker than 10 minutes. As folks will remember, last quarter, a lot of the work that I was doing was surrounding fossil fuel divestment as it pertains to the WW Foundation's endowment. We got a response, and if you haven't had the lovely misfortune of reading it yet, it is very frustrating. We did not get anything. We asked, to remind folks, we asked for greater investment in the ESG criteria portfolio that we currently have. We asked for standing student and faculty representation in the investment review process. And then we also asked for greater transparency surrounding our already existing sustainable investments. The closest thing we got to like anything was we plan to build out the foundation website to share information about sustainable investing and to develop an annual report with sustainability performance information. That is very similar to what Kira and I were told in a meeting with the foundation executive in October. It is also very similar to what students that were doing a senior project on sustainable investing were told in 2021 by that same executive. So plan means nothing. And I would love for more input on like how we go forward with this. Kira and I have been talking about a formal response from the AS, not necessarily a resolution unless we want to go that route, but more so like, I don't know, an email, a letter, I don't know what the official thing would be. But they also explicitly denied us representation. The third from the bottom paragraph, the foundation board's finance committee will not be seeking outside involvement in the industry review process. In 2018, students were allowed to be involved in that process. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be, in my opinion. We were also told that they would not be pursuing an RFP or an RFI this year. This says otherwise. And there is no mention of the faculty senate's endorsement. And yeah, it's just really lackluster in a lot of ways. And as you can tell, I am heated about it. So if anyone has any thoughts or recommendations on how we go forward, I would love to hear them. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I just want to know, I met with Brandon, the Senate president for the faculty senate, and he mentioned that he did not receive this memo. He found out about it through the grapevine, and he's a little bit like pissed off about that and like more diplomatic language, but yeah, that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, and to that note, really quickly, I've been in contact with Brandon and a bunch of other faculty side people that were involved in this process, and they are all very upset that this email was specifically targeted towards Kira and the associated students of WW and not anyone else that was involved in the actual drafting of the resolution, the passing of it, or the presentation to the Board of Trustees, which we did in December, where we kind of informally got their support. Yeah, anyways, I got my soapbox. Go ahead.
I think a statement could be effective. I also work with Kim and Mark, so if you want to have a meeting where I can go to, I'm super down for that. I know them pretty well, so I feel like we could navigate a little bit more that way.
You and I should have a meeting.
Yeah.
We also, though, one thing is want to be very careful about our student government roles and our role as an ambassador to the foundation, because like you work for the foundation, you're paid for by the foundation.
Yeah.
And so it can be kind of a conflict of interest possibly.
Yeah.
And so we want to be kind of careful about that too, and not utilizing your position on the foundation, and instead utilizing our position as student government, since we should be meeting with them and with student government.
Yeah.
Like I've gone to their board meetings before and utilizing that is, yes, so just don't want to put you in like the
Yeah, for
opposite
sure.
position there, so it's the main thing.
Don't jeopardize your other job, but
Oh, yes.
Exactly.
appreciate you offering that resource.
It'll be a nice conversation.
At least from my side.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate Liam's question is if we would like a statement that is approved by the entire board. Do we want a statement that's just from Liam and I? That would be a little bit more time efficient. Do we want a statement passed by the student senate and the executive board? What is an appropriate response here in your eyes?
and for context, really quickly, I didn't tell you this because I only came to this conclusion like 10 minutes before the meeting, but I do plan on saying something to the Board of Trustees if you're okay with that during your time, just about this general update.
Yeah.
So that might be worth taking into consideration about our approach towards this.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to mention that I think it's fine, like, from what I understand, you guys, they didn't respond to like each bullet point in the resolution, is that right? Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, they didn't explicitly answer any of the asks except for greater transparency.
Okay, yeah, so I would like, I think something about that specifically, like, that you haven't responded on these points would be like, I think that's perfectly appropriate for like Kira or you or both of you to like say as like, you know, the sponsor or the chair. And yeah, I'm supportive of like any kind of response. I don't know what form. I honestly, you guys can figure that out. Thanks.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
I just want to say that I think that you two, I have full confidence that you guys will be able to handle this, and, I think a quicker response would be better, so you would be able to prepare for a board of trustees meeting. That's the key, so.
Yeah, I think the comment, this will be an official thing that's sent to the foundation. Us saying something to the board of trustees is going to be something different and just my general updated report. For context, in a meeting with President Sabal, he said that the trustees are interested in looking into divestment since we brought it to their attention, and students attended outside the board of trustees meeting with a banner for divestment, and several students spoke. It was an amazing speech. Liam was one of the students that spoke, so it was super cool. So they're interested in that. And hopefully President Sabah can be an ally of some sorts and help us answer some questions, bringing this to his light or his attention. He was aware of it. He got the email, but talking to it with him further, he's gonna hopefully answer some questions we have about why we're not being included when we have been previously. So, and conversations that we've had not coming to fruition here, which is not always the best, but. Anything else, sir?
That's all I got.
Okay, me and I will keep you guys updated then. Okay, next we are going to move on to the student government charter. Yay, we have this beautiful revised version that Gabe created, so super, super excited because sadly admin does not like tracked changes. So Gabe made this for us. My computer is right about to, or no, I guess it'll be good for this. One moment while I pull up my notes, so sorry, you guys. Okay, so going through the big changes that were made. So essentially in this preamble right here, it defines student governance instead of like an all-encompassing ASWWU. It said ASWWU and it's talking about students, like the student body who's our voting body, but it said ASWWU and it was confusing with the organization ASWWU, and even like Gabe and I were disagreeing in our own like charter meetings about this. And so super excited to have some clarity in there, because like that was our entire first meeting, just with trying to figure out if they meant the organization ASWWU or the student body ASWWU. The other thing is that it's kind of just, this will be throughout the entire changes of the charter, but the main thing is we kind of updated some of the language that matches some more of the legal language, talking about how this is the sole student governance at Western, and then also really just updating things to what we're currently doing to match our current practice. But in right here, these bullet points, they were mostly mentioned previously, and so we added them up in here to kind of really provide a little bit more. And then next we move on to Article 1, which is ASWWU. So that's where some of that legal language is. So the Western Washington University recognizes ASWWU as the sole student association of Western Washington University. And then the other big change is that instead of just saying any or all WWU locations, instead it just says the WWU location where students pay services and activities fee. The only current location that pays that is the Bellingham main campus. And we are the only students at the Bellingham main campus that have access to voting That's really who we represent in student government. Like, we don't represent the Poolsville campus really, but if the Poolsville campus would like to be part of student government, their campus can start paying a services and activities fee, and student government would represent them. They likely would have some type of change representation, or we would likely change our representation and somehow to incorporate that, or that's a question for later, but it really just changes this, so it's not like an all-encompassing of everybody. I think one of the biggest impacts that it could possibly have is how much money that we pay WSA. Currently, WSA considers ASWWU representing everybody that's a Western student. With this being in effect, it would just be Bellingham main campus students that we would be paying WSA on behalf of, which would be like $3,000 less that we would pay them likely. Yeah, and then does anybody have any questions so far or clarifications? I know it's kind of a long document, but we've all seen it a lot. So, and then this just updates the language of the rest of the area. So it goes from ASWWU, the voting body, to ASWWU student government solely. It adds some of that more legal language. And then one thing that I think is super exciting is it adds in here that we are going to be addressing, and viewing or we're going to be viewing our student government structures every 5 years. Okay, and then next, moving on to, oh no, I actually got Article 2 and Article 3 mixed up. Ignore me, my bad. So the sole student government language, the delegation of authority, so it really kind of just clarifies our role within student government a little bit. And then it adds the section about abolishment in here. It was already in it was in a separate article, so we just moved it up in here for some clarity. And then there was a section that was removed. You can kind of see it like right here. It's it is with the privileges associated with the recognition provided by the Board of Trustees and state legislator. That we're okay with being removed since it's like already implicit, or it's already applied or implied in other places, and so it just kind of repeated itself. And then and it creates more of like a unified language, adding that there. And then moving on to section 3 is where I talk about, or where it talks about looking at it every 5 years. It's kind of a big section, but it was really just like areas from previous sections down below, just added in up above and kind of just rearranged. Article 4, the kind of big takeaways are at the very bottom. It gives us less power or less control over the bookstore. We've really only had like financial management of that. If there's any like leftover surplus funds, that hasn't happened in a long time. So this really is just moving us away from the board of directors model and really towards a model that we're currently using. Clarify some scope changes, and then it switches funds allocated to ASWWU and then funds allocated to student government. The changing in wording is really just for clarity than operationally. And then there's kind of the removal of overseeing activities, which makes us more, once again, moving away from the board of directors model and more towards our state legislator model that we currently have. I know that was so much. I'm sorry that I talked for so long. Here is the full final version. One thing to note is that it has the added promotes the general welfare of students. The final version that was given to Gabe and I did not include that, but it was in the original version. And so Gabe helped us get that added back in. A very important thing to have in there. So yeah, this is just it in its entirety, and then we will all be invited to a signing ceremony on February 1st, which is pretty exciting. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to mention that this, in its current form was approved by the student senate last night. And that just in the work that I did in the task force, it doesn't matter. In the group that was working on this, I think really the big changes are, it's much clearer language and, it leaves things more open, with this language of student government versus saying like executive board of student senate or saying board of directors like it did before. And then, yeah, I think it's like clarity is the biggest thing. And the one thing that's like material impact, other than what Kira mentioned about the voting membership, was, I don't know if you mentioned this also, I kind of like dozed off there yet there, was the removal of the, like direct operational control with the clause about, making decisions and overseeing a program of student services and activities. And then one last thing I'll mention is, but to expand on what Kira was saying about the change of AS funds being allocated, sorry, S and A funds, too many A's and S's. Student service and activities, the funds being allocated to student government instead of to the ASWWU. That's like a clarity change, but like speaking with Melinda, it's still very clear that the student government would still be doing like the final approval of the whole budget for all of the ASWWU programs. Yeah.
Thank you for adding that clarity. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
Thanks for all the hard work on this.
Yeah, thank you, Sophie and Gabe and John, who's a student senator that isn't with us today, John Hardgrove. So thank you guys so much for your hard work, and then thank you to Sabah and Melinda as well, even though they're not in the room with us today, for their hard work on this as well. So, yeah, can I get somebody to motion to approve, or I'd like to open the floor?
One moves to, amend the student government charter with the things that we've got on the document. Brett seconds.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the revisions to the student government charter, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? It passes unanimously. Yay, super exciting. Okay, our next thing is the operational student employee recognition resolution draft, which is going to be presented by Gabe today.
Yeah, so this was here last week, and just to start out with context, this was approved in its current form by the student senate last night. And I feel like I'm saying that a lot. This added, the big change here is just adding the ask that the administration supports Senate Bill 5895, which is the bill that would sort of clarify the like collective bargaining authority and like relationship between operational student employees and the regional universities. So a lot of things were moved around to make it read better. Just as a note, if it's in green underlined, that means it was moved. If it's red, that's just an addition. I did add what I described in the student senate as spicier language, where I quoted Western's response to ASWWU, where Western says that it is unable to formally recognize or negotiate with any bargaining unit without an authorizing statute that provides a uniform structure as well as an orderly and clearly defined procedures for collective bargaining. So then sort of a response in the preambulatory clauses is that Western is able to formally recognize and negotiate with an OSC bargaining unit because there's nothing legally preventing them from doing that. And then that regardless of whether or not they could actually do that, Western's concerns about like orderly processes are addressed by Senate Bill 5895. So what we're saying is that within the resolution resolving clauses that if we maintain that part about what the ASWWU thinks about recognizing the bargaining unit, but then also we added that the ASWWU supports the Senate bill and then requests that Western clearly and publicly support SB 5895 because right now the university is like very tentatively like kind of supporting it, but also proposing amendments that would make it less clear and less effective as a bill. So sort of just getting them to publicly support and like testify that yes. Wait, I guess it would be ways and means, yes, ways and means, we do support this bill, and we don't want to add any amendments is kind of like the point of that, new inclusion to the, resolution. Yeah, any questions?
Currently is italicized.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your hard work on this.
Yeah.
Did you provide the context here that we've passed?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I provided the context last week, that, yeah, we passed a resolution like this last year for the educational student employees. Yeah, so it's very much like a copy paste to some extent, like a lot of language is the same. It just has a different bargaining unit, yeah. Riveting discussion.
Okay, I'd like to open the floor to any motions.
Pratt motions to approve the amended resolution, recognize and negotiate with WAWU operational student employees.
Yeah, seconds.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of approving a resolution for the Associated Students of Western Washington University to recognize and negotiate with WAWU operational student employees, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? It passes unanimously. Okay, I would like to officially adjourn the January 25th meeting of the ASWWU Executive Board at 6:56 p.m.
She probably just exited out. Yeah, so in meeting.